Hey there, friends. On the heels of yesterday's video, I wanted to put out a video with a very special guest today who is actually boots on the ground helping for disaster relief, more specifically from Helene up in the North Carolina and Tennessee areas. This is again on the heels of that story where FEMA was determining based on who somebody was going to vote for whether or not they would provide assistance to those people, and essentially were passing up homes that had Trump signs and Trump flags. This again is a very special guest of mine who came on to talk about how that was a criteria that they simply did not have. So we are looking at the difference between true, honest, good Americans versus people who are simply politically driven in every part of life and simply don't see humans as humans. They see them as political affiliations, and I think that's a real shame. I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Bear from Grindstone Ministries. Okay, guys, we talked yesterday about the FEMA agent who had determined that a particular criteria was necessary in order for Americans who needed disaster relief to receive that relief. And of course, you guys have commented in a comment section and done a great job on that. What I wanted to do is I talked about that distinction between certain people out there who don't need a criteria to help people who require help. Somebody that's in need, they get that help. And I've got a very special guest here from Grindstone Ministries, TJ or Bear. I'll refer to you as both, Bear. You can actually follow Bear on YouTube at Bear Independent. Bear has done a lot in that West North Carolina, East Tennessee area to help a lot of these folks out. In fact, we've sent some generators up there, and I've seen Bear in videos in the background doing work. He's doing the work with these folks out there. And I felt like I needed to reach out to him regarding this story because it's not just my opinion that certain folks do not need a checklist of criteria to determine whether or not somebody needs assistance. It's a person looking out for their fellow brother. And Bear, I want to give that to you and let you run with it.
You know, Paul, thank you for having me. We've been doing Grindstone Ministries for about 5.5 years now. We've deployed 46 times, including Hurricane Helene. I started doing disaster relief post Hurricane Katrina. I've never asked a single person what their political affiliation was when they've lost everything. It doesn't matter. You know, we get very polarized, as oftentimes I think we should, given the direction of federal politics in this country. But we're all still people. And I think that's something that we oftentimes forget. You know, when somebody's had their house just completely removed, it's gone by an EF5 tornado, or a 30-foot wall of mud comes through, or they get, 3 trillion gallons of rain in a 24-hour period. Those things, while they matter, don't matter anymore. And it's a shame, man. It's a shame that our taxpayer dollars being used to prop up the Federal Emergency Management Agency that has criteria based upon political affiliation as to whether or not you're going to receive help. FEMA is not very good at what they do anyway. And the fact that they're now metering out assistance to American citizens based upon what sign is in your front yard is ridiculous. We look for people. Grindstone has always looked for people who last week didn't know how they were going to buy groceries and this week don't have a house anymore. Those are our kind of people, and those are the areas that we're drawn to. And based upon income level, you can draw certain conclusions based upon socioeconomic status as who it is that would be living there. I don't care. How can I help you? What do you need? You need food? Do you need water? Do you need medicine? Do you need shelter? Do you need the ability to thermoregulate? All that stuff just goes right out the window, man. And so I think we already knew that FEMA sucked. I think we already knew that the federal government was bloated and was being a bad steward of our taxpayer dollars. But this is just one more example of that. And in light of the air quote response in Hurricane Helene, to see what's been happening with Milton as to, oh, you have a Trump sign in your front yard, sorry, we can't help you, or don't even go talk to those people. I think we all knew it. It just hurts to actually see it thrown in our face.
Yeah, I think some of us would almost be okay with it remaining a conspiracy theory so that we don't have to know that this is happening. But you're right. We all knew it was happening. I want to get your first take because I know I had to read the story twice when I saw it the first time. When you heard it the first time, what was your initial reaction and what did you think?
I'm 0% surprised. Like 0% surprised. It doesn't surprise me at all. The fact that FEMA would even be going out and canvassing, looking for people to help, is the exception, not the rule. Typically, where you'll find FEMA is at a middle school somewhere sitting at a plastic or a metal desk playing video games on their phone. We've observed them doing that, recorded them doing that on multiple occasions. So it doesn't surprise me that some unelected bureaucrat somewhere that runs a field team in some region put out messaging to his or her staff that, hey, don't even bother helping these people. I also think there is something to be said, though, that when it comes to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, in many cases, in many regions, they're not going to be well accepted anyway. And so if I was somebody that, say, had the opposite political affiliation working for FEMA, and most of them do, and I see a Trump sign, yeah, that's a non-permissive environment for me. You know, you run into a lot of blue-haired effeminates walking around with FEMA vests on at some of the most interesting places. And so, yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all.
You touched on something that I want to point out, a prediction that I want to make, and I'll ask your opinion on this. Great point about the image of FEMA right now. How soon do you think, and how quickly will FEMA come back in defense of this person and say, well, the reason why they felt like they couldn't go there is because they didn't feel safe because of what they had been hearing? How soon until we're going to get that reason for not going into that yard?
I think if they were really concerned about that messaging, that narrative would have already been out. But now that they're probably in damage control over this thing, I'd expect it in 24 to 48 hours. Hell, they probably have somebody watching this right now going, oh, that's great, let's latch onto that. They were afraid for their safety. We couldn't guarantee the safety of these people because the reputation of Trump supporters, fascists, Nazis, you know, literally Hitler, blah, blah, blah. We can't go over there and help those people because we can't ensure the safety of our own staff, our own volunteers, our own constituents to go over here and even talk to these people.
Well,
now,
remember the fake threats up in your area originally, where they were saying that people in North Carolina were physically threatening the FEMA folks anyway. So they already floated that fake threat that's already been debunked anyhow. So they have that in the air already.
Well, the whole militia thing with Hurricane Helene in Appalachia, the idea that there was gun-toting, you know, dudes in pickup trucks driving around threatening FEMA, that's not something that I observed with my own eyes. However, I will tell you this. There were many, so like 50% of the roads and bridges in this area were destroyed. And the bridges and roads that remained open, while passable, FEMA was putting up roadblocks saying, you shall not pass. You cannot get through. Well, aid workers and locals, but hey, my family's up there. My mom lives up on the side of that mountain. I'm going through. No, sorry, sir, you can't come through here. Well, people that may or may not have been wearing FEMA vests may or may not have been getting the crap kicked out of them and left on the side of the road so that the locals could pass. Right. In my humble opinion, as they should have, regardless of which safety vest you're wearing. If I live here and my mom's up there on the side of the mountain, I'm coming through here, and that's my right as an American and a citizen of insert state here. You can't limit my ability to travel, especially under the guise of my own personal safety. I'm an adult. I will sign off my own personal safety. I'm coming through here. And so there wasn't, that I perceived, that I saw with my own eyeballs, a significant militia threat in Appalachia to FEMA. But there were FEMA workers that were attempting to restrict access to certain areas that we'll just say were very interesting from a national security standpoint, that those people were getting the crap kicked out of them, as they should.
I was going to say, my response to that is, dang.
Oh, no. I mean, you know, what is it? Of resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. You know, there's
100%.
When you're, and that just further illustrates, right? The Federal Emergency Management Agency doesn't get in there and do anything. We have always accomplished recovery in spite of the government, not because of the government.
That is very well said.
We get things done as privately funded, just citizens, in spite of the government. What FEMA does is they have a checkbook, they hold a purse, and they will come in and ascertain the degree to which this area has been destroyed, put a dollar value on that, then use that dollar value to entice disaster contractors to come in and do the work. Well, that's part of why insurance has gone up so many places. It's gone up so high, like in Florida. Good luck even getting insured after these hurricanes at this point now, right? So it drives the cost of everything through the roof. Well, if I don't want to use the federal money and I don't want to use the insurance money, I just want to come in here privately funded with our chainsaws, our heavy equipment, our volunteers, and do work. Me and FEMA have nothing to talk about, nor do any of the locals or the church groups or anybody else. And so Helene was freaking weird, man. It was weird for a lot of reasons, but it was the first deployment we've ever done, that I have ever done in 19 years of doing this, where it felt like the government was actively getting in the way. They weren't just there; they were actually
purposely getting in the way.
Recovery. Yeah, very weird vibe. And so I'm not surprised that a whole bunch of people got the crap kicked out of them on the side of the road.
No, I would actually, I mean, not to drag this interview out, but I would like to actually talk to you on another video one time soon. I've watched some of your videos in the past, and you shared some really interesting stuff, and I have to give you props for it, but also credibility because you are there. This is not some guy from the East or the West Coast sending an email out saying this is what I think is happening. You're actually watching this happen, and some very interesting stuff that you have shared that I would like to talk with you later on other videos.
I'm back.
Okay, sorry. I was just saying that I want to get you on a future video talking about some of the things that you've seen, because I believe you have the credibility of somebody you're literally boots on the ground over there. You're not taking third-party information and passing it on. You're seeing these things, and the folks that work elbow to elbow with you are seeing these things. And I got to tell you, for a lot of the older videos that I've seen, I say older, I'm talking about the last few weeks or so, really interesting to me. I've been watching a lot of your videos, and the information is, let's just say, interesting. I'm hearing things from you that I'm like, I got to talk to this guy, man. This is not cool, man. And those things are validated through other people that I listen to. It's not just you, I guess is my point.
Yep.
There's a lot of eyeballs witnessing the same things.
Well, in the mouths of 2 or 3 let a thing be established, right? Like, that's biblical. Having multiple witnesses before we say, oh, yes, this is fact.
Correct.
And we've got all the receipts, man. We've got pictures and videos and testing results and all these things. And it's an interesting place to find ourselves in, because that's not why we went to Appalachia. What we do, what Grindstone does predominantly, is debris management. That's what we do. Right? We come in pro bono and take care of the trees and the houses and all that kind of stuff. Haul off the debris. Well, that isn't what our primary focus was in Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina. The environmental factors there, what's in the rivers, how it got into the rivers, where all the people went. We had a full-blown spun-up tactical operations center with intel, like legit intel analysts, legit commo guys doing HUMINT and OSINT and signals intelligence. We're doing our own aerial reconnaissance in our own helicopters, looking at ADS-B and what aircraft are flying where, and this one's transponding, this one's not transponding. Mm-hmm. Just a very interesting picture. And I'll just come out and say it, man. It absolutely appears to be a federal land grab is what's happening there. And proof of that, if anybody's looking for, substantiate that, Bear. They are redefining, they being FEMA through the EPA, is redefining where the 100-year floodplain is, so that there's a whole bunch of private land that previously was outside of the floodplain, now will be inside of the floodplain, meaning you can't rebuild there, you can't reoccupy this land. It's going to become a Superfund site. And the cleanup for the Superfund site is probably going to end up being a strip mining operation to get to the very interesting things that are underneath the ground. I don't like having to come to that conclusion. I would love to be wrong about that, but that's where all the intelligence is pointing. That's where all the data is pointing. That's what's happening. Talking to homeowners there, property owners there, other aid workers there. There were a lot of assets from a lot of different organizations on the ground, both for the people and against the people, and trying to put all that together and into an intelligence picture that actually makes sense. What I can come up with is this looks like a federally subsidized land grab because there's lithium and graphene and quartz underneath the ground there.
Yeah, all that was super interesting. I do want to address that in future videos, but I will say some of the things that stuck out to me on your video. Not only that's in the ground over there, but the cadaver dogs that you mentioned were getting sick, and the story that you shared about the folks needing assistance on the mountaintop, and then they declared that they closed the airspace or something like that and would not allow
Yep.
you guys to fly up there to assist these people?
Yep.
Yeah, knowing there were people up there, was it military airspace or something? Isn't that what they did?
100%. There were several hundred communities up on the sides of these mountains in this region, and we were servicing several of them. And the only way we could get stuff into them was with aircraft. Well, the military was saying, no, this is now military airspace only. Okay, well, I can't tell the military what to do, but the assumption was if you're going to take this airspace, you're going to service the people underneath of this airspace. They stopped doing that. So instead of us now being able to fly into this area and service the people who are cut off in this area, we now have to fly next to it, go on the ground, then lateral over across the ground to continue to get, food, water, medicine, electricity, fuel, just basics to these people. And there were multiple locations, multiple communities up on the sides of these mountains that were intentionally cut off. They knew there were people still up there, and they left them up there anyway. And I think, this is me saying I think, in an effort to wait those people out, they're going to have to come off the mountain at some time. They're going to have to accept an order at some point. We're just going to let them be rather than service them. So,
well, I'm going to say this facetiously because I don't want you to think that I'm a fool. But so you're telling me that you guys were providing assistance to people on a mountain via aircraft, and the government restricted you guys from going up there, and they didn't replace the efforts that you guys were already rendering to these people to give them that assistance? That's what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's correct.
Unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. Yep. Not that I don't believe it, because I do, but for me as a human being, that just blows my mind.
Yep. And I think that's why you ended up seeing the 82nd, 101st pull out.
Yeah.
Because what they were doing, for lack of a better word, I don't think they wanted to be underneath the thumb of FEMA. They were uncomfortable with the scope of the operations that they were given. And so they ended up leaving because they didn't want to be associated with anything like that, which for me gives me hope as an American citizen.
Right.
But yeah, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened, man. We can unpack that in another video sometime.
Yeah, I would definitely want to have you back. I want to say this, being down here in South Louisiana, we're 20 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. These hurricanes have just hammered us over the last several years. And one thing that I've noticed, and my point in all this, is that it seems like the people that might be responsible for a land grab, people don't realize how patient they are. They will play the long game. They're not looking for immediate change over these things. And we saw down here in South Louisiana, after you get Laura, 6 weeks later, Delta hits. There were people, and people know this happens, that they say, if one more hits, I'm out of here. Yep. Like, they're devaluing their own land, and they're devaluing this area by saying, the hurricanes are so bad, I don't know if I want to live through this anymore. Trust me, I don't want to live through it anymore. So I think that the people you're talking about are willing to play that long game by slowly rendering all these areas of value useless. And then at some point they go in and get it for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, we can show through documentation that we've been able to acquire that some of these chess moves began back in the 80s.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Yep. Well, you and I plan on doing that. We'll have some offline conversation. I'd love to address that. It's a pleasure to have you on here, man. I see a lot of the work you've done, and I'll be honest with you, I've wanted to get you on here sooner, but man, I know you guys are busy, and I know you're still doing things up there. But when everything was happening, I was like, I don't want to be the guy that gets in the way of somebody or a certain family who's waiting on something, and I'm taking an hour of your time where y'all aren't going to be able to go do that. So I do appreciate you taking the time to come on here and enlighten us on this FEMA situation. But I'm excited to have you back on later on to talk about some of this other stuff that you found up there.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate your time, bro.
Barrett, let's talk real quick. Grindstone Ministries. How can people go check you guys out at Grindstone Ministries?
So you can find us at grindstoneministries.com. Sign up for the email blast there. We don't spam you, market to you via email. That's where the op word goes out the next time we deploy, and the next time, and the next time. So if you want to come be a part of what we do, sign up for the email blast. If you are convicted to donate, you can do that there. You'll also find like Amazon wish lists there for things that we're acquiring for the people in the field, the communities that have been hit. Hey, they need more blankets. They need this, they need that. All that's at the website. And then we're also on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff.
Good. And I know you guys are legit. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to Jared with Guns and Gadgets, and Johnny B. Those are the guys who put me on to you. And he might not want to be named, but I do want to thank my friend David, who brought the generators from down here in Louisiana up there to you guys. It's because of Jared and Johnny that we sent them up there. And David is not one that wants recognition for things that he does, but he was tremendous in helping get those generators, driving them all the way from Louisiana to Tennessee for you guys. So regardless of whether or not he wants the recognition, he's getting it, because I do appreciate his help.
Well, we appreciate it too, man. I mean, our whole business is to get in there and save lives, to help people to the best of our ability. You know, we do from search and rescue up to when it's time to start to rebuild. That's where Grindstone is at right there, from the immediacy of after the storm to when it's time to do a handoff to go ahead and, you know, we need to get 2x4s and stuff in here. That's what we do, you know, and we can't do it without people like y'all. So I really, really appreciate your support and everybody else's support on this Helene deployment, because this was unprecedented for us too, man. This is a huge scope for us, and it was a blast. I don't necessarily want to repeat it, because this one was crazy.
Well, I appreciate all the work you guys have done, and please keep us included on anything else you guys might need in the future. We'd love to get the word out and get you guys additional help if you need some. If you'll hang on the line for a second, I want to get with you before we let you go.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Just wanted you guys to see that there is a very distinct difference between people who are good at heart and render assistance to people, and those who simply are cashing a check from the federal government, carrying the water of the wackos on the far left. And I think this was a perfect representation of it. Thank you, Bear, for joining me, and looking forward to having him back on the channel to discuss some of these things he talked about. Guys, there's weird stuff happening in the western part of North Carolina and East Tennessee, and hopefully we can at least get the word out about it. Who knows if anything can be done about it. Maybe this is also some stuff we need to get better eyeballs on from the federal government, those who might be a little bit better people than the ones who are trying to drive all of this weirdness going on right now.
I don't understand the point that you're making.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.